we're hearing this term Latinx, but many who say I self-identify as Hispanic or Mexican or Chicano don't call me Latinx. What do you say about this?
Well, as an older person than probably most of the people you spoke to, the older people aren't going to use the term Latinx. And, maybe some do, I don't know. But everybody is entitled to call themselves whatever they want. I was born in San Diego. I'm very proud of my Mexican roots, and I identify 100% as Mexican. I don't use the term Mexican American, definitely not Hispanic. But people from the West Coast or from Mexico or Central America, etc., South America, they tend to use the term Latino. They don't use the term Hispanic either. It's usually Caribbean countries that use Hispanic. So I use the term Mexican. If somebody points at me and goes, "Look at that Chicano over there," I'm not offended. But when they ask me what I use, I say Mexican. As a matter of fact, I'm so proud to be Mexican that when Mexico passed its law of dual nationality in 1998, I literally was the very first one to apply and receive it. So all my documents and my Mexican passport, all that, have all these zeros and then the number 1. So I often say, "Oh, I'm the first Mexican," because I wasn't born in Mexico. I was born here. My parents were born in Mexico. My older brother and sister were born in Mexico. And so I'm very proud to identify as Mexican. And it's a generational thing. Older people, like I said, like me in their 60s or older, I doubt you'll find very many, if any, that use the term Latinx. There's nothing wrong with that term, but that's a younger term for people. And then also geographically, the terms that are used, and in the United States, on the West Coast, Latinos, on the East Coast, especially if you're from a Caribbean country, Hispanic. In general, there's no clear-cut rule on what term to use. But I've been, when people ask me how I identify, I identify as Mexican. I'm very proud to.
And you had said this is by choice.
Yes. Yeah, this is by choice. And if there's a form and it says other, where you hit check the box type of thing, because you usually don't have all those options. It'll say Latino, Hispanic. It'll usually have those. I don't remember them saying Mexican American. Maybe some do. I don't know. But I'll put I'm Mexican. That's what I am. It's by choice. But I know there's some debate about it with some people. But for me, I have bigger things to worry about than what somebody identifies me as. Right. I've been identified by worse terms that have nothing to do with nationality. I can assure you that.
Well, and I think it's important now, though, is when we're using this in the context of just asking people, how do you self-identify? Because I wouldn't want to call someone Latinx if they would rather be called Latina, or if it's like Hispanic. And I know the origins when we're talking about Hispanic or Latino, but when we're talking about self-identity, I think it's important that we respect of how somebody self-identifies. And
absolutely.
Yes, we use this word interchangeably, and maybe we can as a group, but when we're talking about an individual person, their self-identity, I think, is important.
Well, today I was on a major conference call with some colleges and universities from across the country. So these were all college kids, and they were talking about Hispanic Heritage Month. And I was the keynote speaker, and I told them, I don't use the term Hispanic. I use the term Latino Heritage Month. And a lot of them agreed. And I go, well, but if you keep on using the term that you don't like, people will continue using it. And I go, so I think it's important that you stand up and say, I don't agree with that term. I don't use that term. I remind people that, for example, our Italian brothers and sisters that were undocumented, they were called WAPs. And that was a derogatory term. And that meant without papers, WAPs. And of terms that they've used for other ethnic groups that are not favorable terms. So you got to stand up and say something. Our African American brothers and sisters were called 3/5 of a human being. So you need to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not acceptable. I kind of led the charge here in San Diego, and I did a lot nationally, but in San Diego definitely. When I went to the San Diego Union Tribune, then I went to the television stations, including yours. The only one I didn't waste my time was was KUSI, but it was all the other ones. And I said, don't use the term illegal immigrant or illegal alien. Don't use that term. And the first person that agreed not to use it, surprisingly, was the San Diego Union under Manchester when he owned it. And because I told John Lynch, I go, at least a third of your readers are Latinos. I go, they're very offended. That very day he changed the term. He goes, we're not going to use that term anymore in print. So I took that document over to Susan Merriman, who used to be with KPBS, and they changed their policy. Then I went to the main television stations. I went to the main stations, and they all agreed. They go, we won't use it. And when I see somebody use it, even today, if I see Wolf Blitzer or somebody like that, I'll contact them and I'll go, hey, CNN, we have a deal, or whomever. And I'll say, like, if it's Wolf Blitzer, I'll say, I know you're a character more or less. I know you didn't mean it in an offensive way, but people can be offended, to your point. People can be offended. And then a guy like Wolf, he'll say, oh, I'll apologize. I publicly will say, I shouldn't have used that term. And then there are people that use it on purpose, the illegal term. For example, Rodney Scott, the former Border Patrol chief from San Diego, that was then National Border Patrol chief. One of the reasons that President Biden removed him from that was because he refused to stop using the term illegal alien. And he goes, I can't have the vice president meet with you and you're going to be using that term. And so he was removed from his position. So some of the terms are blatantly offensive. Some of the terms are by choice. And, you can, like I did today in the conference call, I said, I know you call it Hispanic Heritage Month. I use the term Latino Heritage Month. And during the conversation, at least, they started saying Latino Heritage Month. So change can come, so it's important that we speak up.
Well, thank you so much, Enrique. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.